Folks, it's time. Joining me on the show is the man behind the new adaptation of The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, the Le Carré classic. It is dramatist and screenwriter extraordinaire, Mr. David Eldridge. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you? Good.
Yeah, I'm all right. It's getting darker and darker as the days go by here in England, but I suppose that's apt for the story we're talking about.
Yeah, it's sort of. I feel like Le Carré is made for the autumn and winter months, really.
Yeah, you tend to go towards more like Thunderball or something, or the spy, the spy who loved me in the summer or the spring. So
Yeah,
slightly a lighter story.
yeah. No, you kind of imagine Smiley, I think, in sort of like London squares where trees have been stripped bare of leaves.
Leaves on the ground and
Yeah,
yeah, everything's autumnal. Yeah,
yeah.
I couldn't imagine Smiley in the blue onesie from Goldfinger or something like that.
No, no, I
No,
don't think
just doesn't quite work, does it? That romper
so. Not
is not
really.
for
No.
Smiley. Well, let's go back a wee bit. I want to get into the story of how Spy came to you and how this whole thing got started. But you've been playwriting for a long time at this point. This isn't your first dally into this world, and you also
No.
teach in this department as well. So, what inspired you to get into playwriting?
Well, it was when I was at university, basically. I mean, I got probably like a lot of people, I got inspired by a drama teacher at school,
Hmm.
and that was a really great part of my sixth form experience, and I completely changed what I thought I was going to do. I thought I'd go to university to do history or politics or both. But yeah, within the space of about 6 months, I was like, no, I want to go to uni to do English literature and drama, and I very much wanted to be a director then, as a sort of 17, 18-year-old. But when I went to university in Exeter, I sort of went off the idea of directing quite fast. Um, I think it was like a mixture of like stuff that was like really genuinely related to like the craft and the art,
Hmm.
which was a lot of directors, like aspiring directors that were around me,
Yeah.
sort of saw directing as basically taking an old play by a dead playwright like Shakespeare or, you know, Corneille or Ibsen or whatever, and then kind of completely deconstructing it and putting a new spin on it. And I didn't really see the point in it. And also I think probably like I felt had an idea that like people that were directors were quite arrogant,
Hmm.
and I didn't really like. One of the things that I liked about drama was being part of a group that put
Yeah.
something on. So sort of out of, I suppose, a bit of youthful naivety and genuinely forming what I thought of the world, I just started to write. I just started to write plays, and I wrote I wrote a play about these two early 20-something mates from this council estate in East London,
Hmm.
between my second year and my final year. And yeah, it was without really realizing what I was doing, I suppose I'd written a play that was quite in vogue at the time. It was quite angry in the
Hmm.
90s. There were quite a lot of angry, quite reacting against the Thatcher years, often had quite Brit poppy vibes around them in terms of the music or the feel of them. And yeah, I wrote this play, and to no one's greater surprise than me, a theatre in West London called the Bush Theatre picked it up,
Hmm.
and it actually went on the February after I graduated. So from sort of being like a 21-year-old graduate going back to his telesales job and his room at his mum and dad's, I suddenly had an agent and a play on and was getting paid to write, and I've been writing ever since. And that's really how it happened. It sort of just went into it basically.
I'm just going through the file of facts of my brain. Is the Bush Theatre the one in Shepherd's Bush
It is,
next
yeah,
to the market, basically?
yeah. So
Yes.
the Bush Theatre where it is now is the new Bush Theatre. That's the old
Right.
Shepherd's Bush Library,
Right. Okay.
become the new Bush Theatre. But basically, if you go round onto the green from where the
Hmm.
Bush is now and turn right and head up towards Goldhawk Road,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the pub on the corner, the old Bush Theatre that I had my first play in, used to be in the room above the pub.
Oh, okay.
It
Yeah.
used to be Lionel Blair's dance studio, and then in the early 70s, it became a fringe theatre and it became a place that was known for doing new work, basically. Yeah.
Quite a history there indeed. But speaking of history, and I want to synthesize this into spy a little bit because this is Spy Hard's podcast.
Yeah,
We
of
love
course.
spy stuff.
Yeah.
Going back for you, was spy fiction, film, TV, books something that interested you growing up?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, basically, I read the first author I read really that was in that genre was Frederick Forsyth.
Hmm.
I read The Day of the Jackal. Like I find it a bit pulpy now, but I as a 10-year-old
Hmm.
who was an absolutely mad reader who's reading well above his age, I absolutely loved Forsyth's The Fourth Protocol.
Hmm.
Um, about this kind of plot to sort of explode a nuclear bomb in an American base. It was subsequently made into a film, as I'm sure you know, because you're the expert on the genre, with Pierce Brosnan
And Michael Caine.
and Michael Caine.
Quite the
Absolutely.
combo, actually. That was his bounce back from almost getting Bond in '87. Was doing that,
Oh
funnily
wow.
enough. Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of really, so I love that stuff. I saw like the Le Carré TV adaptations with Alec Guinness. They were things I
Hmm.
watched with my dad. I sort of read quite a lot of the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan stuff as a
Yeah.
teenager. And then when I went to university, that one was when I first read Le Carré, Tinker Tailor, and Spy Came from the Cold, etc. So I'd sort of come to the TV adaptations first, but then I read the novels.
Hmm.
So I always kind of had a fascination with the genre, kind of sometimes and Bond as well. I never ever read any of the Fleming novels actually, but I've seen all the Bond films, and normally watch them when they come out and stuff. So and have done since I was a kid. So yeah, there was partly an interest in the kind of spy as kind of action hero, but also I think as I got older, I got interested more, I suppose, in Le Carré, slightly darker anti-heroes,
Hmm.
and that world. Yeah, I also as well like just always had a fascination with the world,
Hmm.
essentially. Like, and I so like when so I read any non-fiction that would come out as well. So I remember when Spycatcher came out.
Hmm.
Like, you remember there was that whole scandal around its publication where that ex-MI5 guy had gone to Australia and he was very embittered about his pension rights and all that. So I read the Spycatcher book. So as things would come out, I'd read whatever I could get my hands on. Um, yeah, I don't know really kind of where the fascination comes from, except that I had it. I was
Yeah.
interested in it, um, and also interestingly, when I was about 10 or 11, I think I saw a brush past, which has always stayed with me. So there's basically an underpass under the A12 that kind of, if you're heading out of Romford, which is where I grew up towards North
Hmm.
Romford, Collier Row, there's an underpass, and I saw this. I'd come round there on my bike, and I saw this woman go by this guy, and she gave him his bag, and like it was probably more likely to be something to do with criminality. Do you know what I mean? Than
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anything that espionage related. But in my mind, you know, um, like I'd witnessed some kind of spy incident, and I told my mum about it and said that we should go to the police. And my mum just kind of gave me a bit of a bollocking. She thought I just had a hyperactive imagination. But yeah, no, so there was a genuine kind of fascination with the world, with how the genre, the way the world is portrayed. Um, yeah, so I kind of, it was something that had always been there, but I never ever thought actually I would write in the genre. I mean, that's what's interesting. Although it's a genre I really enjoyed and a world I was fascinated by. Um, I hadn't had any like ideas that were espionage related, and no one had come to me until the recent time suggesting that I might write in that area. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Well, let's start the story then. So how does because I was looking at some of the plays you've worked on coming into this. I didn't see anything that seemed particularly spy, and you sort of confirmed that to me
yeah,
there.
sure.
So how does this? come to you? How does the work start? Because I know there was a sort of a iteration process that went before this
Yeah.
came to be. So how did the Spy Who Came from the Cold begin?
Well, it's been a really long process now. It actually begins end of August, beginning of September 2018.
Wow. Okay.
So over 7 years ago. So the director Jeremy Herring, who's
Hmm.
actually directing the production, he was someone I knew from when he worked at the Royal Court Theatre. He'd been around when I'd had a play on there, and I'd got to know him a little bit. And although he hadn't directed my play, he was around, and I knew him a bit and liked him very much, and thought he was a very good director. And he sort of basically just got in touch with me and said, "Oh, can I take you out to lunch?" And you sort of know that he's going to have something to pitch me, and I had no idea what it would be.
Hmm.
And so we just went and had this lunch, this really nice lunch. And about halfway through, he said, "Oh, do you know, uh, you know, have you ever read John le Carré's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold?" And I said, "I
Your ears
had."
pricked up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd not read it. I reread the novel in summer 2012. And I remember it really vividly because I just split up with my wife, and I was really trying to sort of keep calm and like stay away from alcohol and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I had spent a lot of time in that summer watching the Olympics, smoking fags, eating chocolate, and being on my sofa in this new flat I was in reading. And I reread a lot of Le Carre, including The Smoke Came In From the Cold in that time.
Hmm.
So had that memory of it. But and he said, what do you think about adapting it? He said, I love your plays. I think, I love your play Beginning. I love what you did with the Danish film Festen, adapting that for the theatre. And yeah, no, I tried to not get too carried away. I just said, well, it sounds great, but can I reread the book? Let me reread the book, and I'll get back to you. And that was what happened, Scott. I reread the novel and was really excited by it immediately. Um, I felt like, although I didn't know how I was going to adapt it straight away, like, just rereading the novel from the point of view of thinking, could I turn this into a play?
Hmm.
I just noticed in a really basic level that like a lot of the key scenes in the novel are these quite intense two-handed scenes,
Yeah.
which is something that I kind of had been known for in my theatre work and that worked very well in the theatre. And, and then the novel builds towards like this kind of court trial type scene. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's a tribunal, but in terms of thinking like court trial scenes when they're done in the theatre always work really, really well.
Hmm.
There's something about being in the live shared experience in a theatre of like that kind of transaction, which is always really dramatic and really involving. You always feel really involved in it, I think. And I think that kind of court trial scenes often work a bit better in the theatre than sometimes they do on screen, just
Hmm.
because of the way we get caught up in it. And then there was kind of, and this was more of a dare really, which is I thought, okay, like how do you do the end? Like that's the challenge. Like how do you do the very end?
Hmm.
That with the Berlin Wall and all of that. Like how do you do it? And so kind of out of those bare bones, I sort of thought like I've got to do this if like they will let me do it. By meaning they, I suppose Jeremy had said to me, if you're interested in it, then we'd need to go and speak to, John le Carre's son, Simon. So
Hmm.
David Cornwall, obviously, is John le Carre's name. David Cornwall's son, Simon, who ran Ink Factory Films. And then, you'd need to meet the great man himself as well. So I know by no means thought like that the job was just in the bag, but I I thought, yeah, I kind of would really love to have a go at this. I think this will be really exciting and it will be a bit of a challenge because I know how to do some of it and some of it I don't know how to do at all yet.
Hmm.
And the prospect of working with Jeremy was really good, so that's literally Scott how it all started basically.
Well, part of this is I kind of want to tell the story for those who want to hear how we get from A to B to
Yeah,
eventually
of
Z of
course.
seeing the show. So this is 2018. You pitched it, and
Yeah,
I'm sure you devoured the book within the space of a few months and tried to pitch in your
few
head how you.
days.
Well, I mean, like you probably reread it a few times
Yeah,
of
I did.
certain
Yeah, yeah, of
chapters, and
course.
there's one chapter I do want to bring up to you. I don't have the book with me, but there's a line at the end. Because I haven't seen the play at this point. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone.
sure.
Well, obviously there was previews before, but there's a line particularly I'm interested to see how you've tackled that line, which we'll come to. But so between 2018 and now, you've read the book, you've thought about it.
Yeah.
What's the next stage in the sort of process?
Well. I went and met Simon Cornwall,
Okay.
uh, and I didn't meet his father initially, partly because his father was busy. Um, his father was his father had written another book.
Yeah.
He was also there was also kind of an adaptation of one of his novels that where the screenwriter had left, and he was having a go at doing the screenplays himself. So he was just very busy writing. So I met his son, and that was really really good. And they basically like said, let's like go for it with you kind of writing a script, you
Hmm.
know. But I suppose what I didn't really realize at the time was that, like normally in the theatre, if you get a commission to write the script, kind of you're the writer and it's kind of game on, basically, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, like about 18 months after that, just before the pandemic, when I'd kind of nearly had a first draft ready for them.
Hmm.
John le Carre wanted to meet me. Said he wanted
Okay.
to meet. He'd finished some of his commitments and
I
all
was
that.
going to ask if you did get to meet him, so there you go. We'll
Yeah.
get that. So okay.
So we went. So I met him for lunch in this club in Soho, and it was like David Cornwall and his son Simon, who I'd met before, and I was with the producer, the theatre producer Alan Stacey,
Hmm.
this time. And when we got there, we sort of like no one kind of ordered anything. There was, when they just bring tap water in a
Yeah.
restaurant, and sort of very sort of gently but noticeably, David Cornwall sort of started to run the ruler over me. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And like I remember thinking, like crap, like I've nearly finished this script, and this feels a bit like this is the audition.
Yeah.
I feel like I've
It
nearly
sounds
finished the
like it
script.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually may have written a script and I haven't got the job. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? In a way. But he very gently like ran the ruler over me. He wasn't interested at all actually in me pitching or talking about how I was going to adapt his book. It was 100% about whether he could trust me and what he made of me. He
Hmm.
was just interested in talking to me about what I thought about writing in general, about the world, like where I came from, my family, education. He just was totally, and it probably like only lasted 15 minutes, this, Scott, but it felt like it was an hour. It was one of them. Do you know?
I've been in those meetings before. I completely understand it. You're sweating bullets, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty tough. I can understand.
Yeah, and he was very sweet, but it was definitely a test. Do you know what I mean as well?
It's like I'm not thinking about my questions and answers with you too much right now. I bet you were thinking about your questions and answers in that particular conversation.
Yeah, I was a bit, but I sort of realized as well quite quickly that that was what that was. He just wanted to get the measure of me to try and see what I was made of and whether he trusted me. But there was basically this moment where David Cornwall and Simon Cornwall kind of glanced at each other, and there was something unspoken exchanged in the glance. And then David Cornwall said to me, I don't know about you, David, but I'm not writing this afternoon. So shall we get a nice bottle of French white wine? And I just remember thinking, I've got the job.
Yeah,
I've passed. Like,
yeah.
and then we just had this really, really. We ended up having two bottles. We didn't leave this restaurant till about 4:30 in the afternoon. A little tipsy, and he was amazing. He was exactly what you'd expect. He told stories about being an intelligence officer and Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, and talked about politics and Brexit and things that he was passionate about. and it was really great. Yeah, and we stumbled off. COVID was in Italy. We all had this sense of foreboding that it was coming
Right.
our way,
Hmm.
and we sort of said goodbye and that we'd look forward to meeting up again. But obviously that was the last time I saw him. He was alive for about another year,
Yeah.
but we were still in COVID time when he died, sadly. So yeah, that was kind of it, really. About 3 or 4 months later, I delivered the first draft of Spy, which apparently he was very happy with.
Hmm.
They had notes and comments, and we sort of got into that process a bit.
Because the estate itself and, David, when he was around, were very protective of the stories compared to some other writers that I've either interviewed or spoken to people who've worked alongside. He's very protective of his stories. And there's been a lot of things that have, I'm sure, been pitched to them that has never happened. So the idea that you've got this sort of thumbs up from the estate and him, it must have been just pure joy.
Yeah, we were really, really happy. I mean, we were a bit cursing as well, just because of the timing, because of COVID happening.
Yeah.
Because instead of us feeling like we'd get the play written and right, and then we would look for a theatre and just get it on,
Hmm.
there was a whole load of uncertainty around what the hell was going to happen. And and it just meant that we got really held up. Uh, this is partly why it's taken so long. It's just
Hmm.
just the fact of COVID, basically. But no, we sort of got on with it, and like I suppose the next kind of key part of it really was to sort of go, like, there was a bit of a debate really when we had the play about whether we would try and go straight into a West End theatre, like with a star, that kind of thing,
Hmm. Yep.
or whether we would try and do the play outside London first, um, to sort of as kind of a first go. And in a way, and that's sort of what happened in the end. The Chichester Festival Theatre
Yeah.
really loved my adaptation, and it was a really great place uh to do the play. Like, it wasn't a tryout in any sense. We gave it everything, and we made it as good as we possibly could for the audience. And as is right, a paying, discerning audience. Um, but it, but having done it once at Chichester summer before last, we did feel like there was an opportunity there to maybe reflect upon what we thought had worked really well first time
Hmm.
round and what we could maybe improve. And then that sort of discussion led to discussions with Soho Place and that management. And so happily, we sort of have landed where we are now, where we're at the end of rehearsals, and week after next we'll be in the theatre and previewing. So
I think if I've had it right, you have almost the exact same cast as you did in Chichester.
we have exactly the same cast as we did
Yeah.
in Chichester, yeah, which
And
is
that
a
must be
great
quite
help.
rare, actually, I would say, like from that sort of like a smaller
Yeah,
thing to a bigger stage.
yeah, they're a really, really committed company. They're all really in love with the work. They're a really happy company. So quite often you can't keep companies together because the actors are fed up with the job, or
Sure.
there's another cast member that they don't get along with and they
Hmm.
don't want to come back second time, something like that. We've not had any of that because everyone really loved the work. I think everyone was really into the idea of building on what we did in Chichester and sharing it with an audience in London.
Hmm.
And also as well, I mean, one of the things that we realized, um, I suppose quite quickly in the Chichester sort of production was that actually, like, we've got like a fantastic ensemble of actors who are all really, really brilliant. But the kind of star of the show is the title. You it's
Hmm.
actually like the star of the show is the title. Like, so many people know the book and love the book, or Le Carré fans and devotees. Um, it's the title that's the star, and that's sort of in a way that's something that's really wonderful for the actors. There's something that's quite freeing about that, that we can all just be part of a team that's just trying to make this thing as good as it possibly can be without there being massive pressure on any one individual, be it the writer, the director, or any of the actors or the designer. It's actually about what we're going to do together to make this kind of great story work in a really vibrant way.
Which must make them feel more like a company in a sense, because it's not
Yeah.
like it's I was just trying to pull like a pop group out of my head, but I couldn't find one. But it's like, say, The Spy Who Came from the Cold Star and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah,
Like you've got this actor that is stratospheric, and then a company around him. Whereas
yeah,
this feels more like a team of people that have come together from Chichester, have taken ownership of this story, and are now taking it as something they all love onto the bigger stage.
yeah. No, I think that that's a really, I think that is a good description. I mean, obviously, the parts of Lemus and Liz Gold are
Hmm.
really important.
Yeah.
Particularly Lemus is the protagonist and the kind of the sort of the anti-hero that we follow that drives the story through. But actually, but even so, that you would say that he's the kind of center of it. They still feel, those actors that play Lemus and Liz, they feel very much part of this group
Hmm.
and this group effort. Yeah,
So getting into sort of I mean, the nuts and bolts of actually adapting something like a Le Carre story,
yeah,
that's got to be a bit of a daunting task, and adapting it specifically for something on the stage, because you also do screenwriting for film and television. That's a
yeah,
different medium in
yeah,
itself. It's a different visual way of telling a story.
yeah.
What's that process like, and what were some of the challenges you faced from adapting this particular story?
I mean, um, I think that the biggest, in a way, the biggest kind of challenge um, was sort of the problem of Smiley in a way,
Hmm.
which is that is that Smiley in The Spy Came In From the Cold is sort of got a walk-on part, really.
Yeah.
It's quite a minor character, but George Smiley, um, is a kind of like culturally significant character, not
Hmm.
just in this genre, in kind of English language literature. You know, um, so if you think about the kind of pantheon of great characters in English contemporary fiction,
Hmm.
Smiley's going to be one of them, right?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
this novel, he's kind of a minor character with a walk-on part. So so part of the interesting challenge of it was how to make George Smiley a more significant part of the drama than he is the novel,
Sure.
without that feeling like it's shoehorned in, that it's really got a place and a meaning in the story and the drama. So that was a thing that took a lot of work. Um, I think that a lot of the other playmaking was often quite pragmatic, actually. Like, you know, you what's I've got the paperback to the novel here, and so the novel is like about 250 pages long,
Hmm.
and like that's probably four times longer than the play needs to be. So there's always an issue in adapting a novel for stage or screen, of an issue of condensation and not and selection, and focusing in on what the parts of the story are that are really important,
Hmm.
and that are really important in your interpretation of the story. And so invariably things that kind of can be like 4 pages of prose in a novel end up being one line of dialogue, or a close-up on screen, something like that. So that's quite pragmatic. But with Smiley, that was where I think a lot of the art came in, was like, how does what's who is he in the play? Who is he in the play, and why is he in the play, and what's his significance in the play? And I think once we were able to kind of, and I was able to answer that question, then the adaptation was able to kind of take shape. So um, yeah, Smiley is a bit different in the play than he is in the book. for
Okay.
sure.
Well, I think that's something to look forward to, especially the Le Carré devotees, as you say, or the big Smiley fans out there. Um, I suppose then on sort of the adaptation thing, and you told me something off air which mildly blew my mind, and I'll bring up in the conversation, and
Yeah,
we
go
haven't
for
really
it.
spoken about because this year actually marks the 60th anniversary, more or less, of the film
Yeah.
adaptation of the book, the Richard Burton film, and you've never seen it.
Yeah, well, when I sort of in 2019, when I'd met Simon Cornwall and they'd pressed go on me writing a script, that we
Hmm.
were talking about just before, I thought to myself, oh, I better see the film. And like, like 6 or 7 years ago, like it doesn't really happen now. It feels like things are fully digital now. But I think people, particularly in my age, were still just about buying DVDs. I
Sure.
remember ordering a DVD of The Spy
Hmm.
Who Came In From the Cold off Amazon, and with as it does with Amazon, like it arrived the next day.
Hmm.
And then I kind of took it out of the packaging and then just put it in the PlayStation that I was using as a DVD player. And the film started, and I just had this feeling of dread, even as like the title sequence was running, and you're getting towards Richard Burton in the cold, at the
Hmm.
checkpoint and all that. And I remember just feeling like really uneasy, and I thought to myself, why am I doing this? Like this isn't an adaptation of the movie. This is an adaptation of the novel. And that I think that if I watch this film now, I'm going to spend my whole time constantly comparing what I'm doing to the film,
Hmm.
or sort of slightly seeing my own choices and instincts through the lens of the film. And as soon as like I had that thought, I just switched it off and ejected the DVD, and I put it in the box, and I never looked at it again. I just sort of thought, I don't know, it's just going to make me neurotic, basically, this
Yeah.
film. So I'm just not going to watch it. I'm just going to have my own take. And other people, like the director Jeremy, or
Hmm.
Simon Cornwall, they will tell me if there's anything that I'm doing that's similar to the movie, or if there's anything in the movie that's useful to us in some way as a point of comparison. Then other people can tell me that. I'm
Sure.
just not going to touch the film with a barge pole, basically. So yeah,
I think that's interesting and I think reassuring for some people. It's a beloved film. Don't get
yeah,
me wrong. Um, Personally, for me, I prefer the book,
yeah,
and I think the film does a disservice to a couple of the characters that I really enjoy.
yeah.
And so I'm glad to hear that your version is probably closer to the book. I would say because that's really that's what you're working from. You didn't even have that secondary
No.
source material. Are you going to treat yourself when all is said and done and it's playing and you can't do anything about it anymore to just watch the film?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I sort of thought I would watch the film after Chichester, but then it wasn't very long after Chichester when we realised that the West End was on the cards, and then
Hmm.
we sort of thought like it would be like a great, as I said, like a great opportunity to do some more work on it. We had a half decent show in Chichester, and like what can we improve? Like we're going to get a second bite of the cherry here. So yeah, the DVD was kind of firmly warded off again, off again. But I mean, I don't sort of regret it at all. And I think, I mean, one of the things, like, just to sort of respond a bit to, I think, I've got no idea how faithful or not the film is to the novel. And we're certainly in the play not always faithful to the novel in the letter. Do you know what I
Sure,
mean?
of
And
course.
certainly Smiley is really quite different in the play than he is in the book, and has a slightly different story. But also, I think that what it's meant as well is like one of the great conversations we had with Simon Cornwall and David Cornwall when he was alive was about the character of Liz Gold, and
Yeah.
the fact that they all kind of freely said, that if you were going to kind of write that story today, you wouldn't write Liz Gold in that way.
Hmm.
You would give a female character like that you know, probably a bit more agency. You'd be a bit
Sure.
more interested in where she came from, what her background was, particularly in the form of a novel where, you know, in prose fiction, there's lots of room to kind of reflect upon a character's personal history and where they come from and what they think about the world, where you can be inside the head of a character in that way. So one of the things that's been great is just to, in Chichester and now in this the kind of West End version, to keep developing Liz Gold's character, you know, and you know that's been a really fun thing to do because, like, as well as the kind of like I'm totally fascinated by the genre, but I'm also really fascinated by that kind of late 50s, early 60s period in London
Yep.
that kind of Liz Gold grows out of, like partly because of my work in the theatre and background. Like I'm really interested in like playwrights at the Royal Court in the late 50s and early 60s, people like John Osborne and Arnold Wesker who like went on the Aldermaston marches, you know, were in
Hmm.
CND that were part of that pacifist left that you could imagine that Liz Gold was a part of, you
For sure.
know.
Yep.
And also in the early 60s, you know, you get the beginning of like the second wave of feminism, you know. So like giving like having a bit more room to explore, you know, like in the novel you find out that Liz is a fairly kind of conscientious communist, you know,
Hmm.
and that she sells the most copies of the Daily Worker, and that's the ruse that they used to get her out to Germany and stuff like that. But actually, like to really kind of explore like who that woman would have been at that time, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
beyond the kind of left wing politics, you know, has been really fun, and it's been really fun to kind of explore that in the play a bit. And also, you know, there are it's meant that there are a kind of a couple of scenes in the play as well that don't exist at all in the novel, you
Okay.
know, that kind of grow out of things in the novel. But there are like two scenes in the play that don't exist in even in any basis in the novel, you know, that just grow out of the characters or things in the novel. So that that's been really, really fun and good to do. And I think partly that sort of feeling of being able to be liberated a bit from the novel, which is very encouraged by the Carré estate. You know, I think it would have been harder to feel liberated from the novel if I'd sort of seen the film as well, you know.
Hmm.
I'd have felt there were two quite powerful cultural histories that were weighing heavy on each shoulder almost. Do you know what I mean? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of sort of that time period, the
Yeah,
Cold War, which is something
yeah,
that continues to fascinate many people, ourselves included, because a lot of
yeah, of
spy movies
course.
seem to take place around the Cold War, because that's where a lot
Yeah,
of
of course.
spying took place. Um, but the book itself and the story,
Yeah.
is that something that you think is important for people to be familiar with coming into seeing the show? I'm not saying you have to have read the book or have seen the film to see the show, but does it add anything to your experience having seen it?
I don't know. It's a really interesting question that. Like sometimes I see like plays and movies where I know the original source material, and I sort of, you know, like sometimes I'm glad that I did, and it adds a layer of experience, and sometimes not. So I think it's really hard, not a hard and fast rule, really. What I would say is that you absolutely don't need to have read the novel or seen the film to enjoy the play or to
Hmm.
understand the play. Um, you know, I think particularly in the play, you know, the way that the story is told, you know, that kind of it hurtles along with Lemus at its center, you know. And also I think in the play, like Liz Gold and Lemus's relationship takes on a bit more significance in the play as well. You know, the kind of thawing out of his heart, you know,
Yeah.
is the thing that he doesn't expect, I suppose. Um, so no, I think that I don't know, you know, I mean, I think that you always get like the people that are the fans, don't you? That spot all the differences and spot
Hmm.
the new bits, and that's part of the fun for them. But for a more general audience, I'm not sure that it makes any difference really.
I think that that's a good way of doing it because not everyone's read the book certainly, and not
Yeah,
everyone's seen the film because it's 60
yeah,
years old.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, of course.
you know. Um, last couple of questions about Spy, and I want to take us on to something else because I'm aware of the time.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Is there a moment that you're particularly proud of the bit of the story that you've written?
In the play of The Spy Came In From the Cold. Oh, I mean, you know what? I just saw the first run through this afternoon, just
Wow. Okay.
from coming here, and I mean, I do, you know, and it comes towards the climax of the show.
Sure.
I do think like the tribunal sequence
Hmm.
is really is really fun, particularly in the theatre. You know, and I think it was really strong in Chichester. But I think in the Soho Place Theatre, which is in the round,
Hmm.
it's an unusual West End theatre where it's completely in the round. Staging that tribunal scene like in the round is just so thrilling. You know, it's really, I felt really excited. And even though I've seen it dozens and dozens of times,
Hmm.
you know, in the Chichester version, the rehearsals for the Chichester version, and then the rehearsals for this version in the last month, it's really thrilling. I would also say as well, like in one of the, it's a scene that there's we sort of have developed kind of like Munt's interrogation of Lemus in the
Hmm.
play, in quite a dark way in the play,
Okay.
and I'll leave it at that because it's a bit of a tease. But like, I think that that sequence is something that an audiences will really enjoy. So that really, I think the tribunal sequence made me feel like really excited and emotional. But this other sequence between the interrogation of Lemus by Munt was like, that was just me reverting to being a 10-year-old reading the genre for the first time, thinking, I cannot wait for an audience to see this bit, you know? So, yeah, really excited about those two scenes, I think.
Well, speaking of that, towards the end of the story, you mentioned the ending and that being a bit of a toughie. And I don't want spoilers here. I want people to go and see the
Yeah, yeah,
play and
sure.
experience it themselves.
Yeah, of course.
But I mentioned a line I wanted to quickly discuss, and
Yeah,
there's a
go
couple of
for it.
chapters in. I couldn't give you it verbatim, but basically, it's at the end of the chapter where Lemus suddenly clocks in as to what's actually happening, and it's just a line. It's like a look on his face of a man who's figured it out, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, for an actor to actually perform that, that must be just a hell of an ask. But for a writer to write that line down and also perhaps slightly iterate upon it, how are you delivering that message? And how at the end are you dealing with perhaps sending the fans home not happy? Because the ending isn't exactly the Disney sing song.
No, no, not at all. But I think that in a way, like this is an advantage of the theatre. I mean, I think like there's a kind of feeling of catharsis that you get in the theatre that's to do
Hmm.
with the collective experience of it. And I think the end of the play, without giving any spoilers, I think it I think it does feel a bit like a tragedy, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That there's a sense of palpable tragedy in the room. So it slightly kind of overcomes some of that feeling of slightly of bathos, I suppose, a bit, and of
Hmm.
feeling empty, and that actually the world is more cynical than you realized, you know. Sort of, you I think you do get all those notes in the play for
Hmm.
sure, because they're just in the story and the action. But in seeing what happens at the end of the spine from who came from the cold and sharing in that in the theater, it feels really, it does feel like a tragedy, you know. It
Hmm.
feels really like, oh my god, you know, that's where we've ended up. So that's one thing in terms of like Lemus's moment of realization, you know. um I think, and I've had moments like this before in plays actually, my original plays, which is you just actually trust it to the stage direction,
Sure.
that 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 you know that you write, character A understands what's been going on all along, or something like that.
Hmm.
I'm just making that up on the spot, really, to give an example, but and you trust, that an actor will deliver that,
Hmm. Yeah.
from their physicality, from the look on their face, and our understanding of that. And Rory Keenan, who plays Alec Lemus in our play, absolutely delivers on that. Like, it's a really thrilling moment when you Lemus has his penny drop, you
Hmm.
know, when the penny drops, it's like, oh, you know, and it's a mixture of what he's doing silently and then just the really simple dialogue, like, I see, so we're there, he's understood, and so do we. So you have to, yeah, I mean, I suppose what it boils down to, Scott, is you have to trust the actor and the audience in those
Yeah.
moments,
Yeah.
because if you over explain in those moments in the script, you kill it dead anyway,
I've seen it. I've interviewed many screenwriters and I've seen them write things to death, and you just think like, just let it be, let the actor act and see what they can
Yeah,
do with it. But
yeah.
again, I'm not a writer, so what do I know? I just watch a lot of films. Okay, last question about Spy, and we're moving
Yeah,
on.
great.
And this is a maybe a hard one, maybe an easy one. In 3 words or less, what can people expect from seeing the play of The Spy Who Came In From the Cold?
Um, Intrigue,
Mm-hmm.
passion,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of like guts. Yeah, it's definitely a play that hits in the gut in different ways. Like, and I think guts is a good word, actually, because it also means courage.
Yeah,
It's definitely a show that feels like, I write about courage quite a lot in my plays, but there's something particular about this play, about the particular sort of courage and guts, and the way it all hits in the gut, that's part of the experience of the evening, I think.
I like that. I'll come back to that at the end, but I want to move us on to something that you have finished working on. It's wrapped already. It's, I'm guessing, in post at this stage. Something you've
Yeah,
written for ITV, a show called Betrayal.
yeah,
Um, we haven't seen a trailer for it at this point of recording. It might be out by the time this episode comes out,
yeah.
but what can you tell us about it at this stage?
So, Betrayal is a four-part series for ITV, and it
Hmm.
tells the story of an MI5 officer called John Hughes. And I suppose the kind of one-line description of it is it's a story. It tells the story of how he has to try and both save his job as an intelligence officer and save his marriage as well.
Hmm.
So, like, I really like, it's very kind of anti action hero spy in a way. Although I probably later in the series I had my cake and eat it a bit. But certainly, like in the early episodes, like my MI5 guy has got married and two kids, and he's in his mid 40s now, and he's starting to suffer with hemorrhoids a little bit, and his wife is totally at her wit's end with him because he's always home late. She never knows where he is, and stuff like that. So there's quite a lot of so I'd say quite a good description of the show is there's quite a lot of um like MI5 work scenes in Thames
Hmm.
House, and then op operationally and stuff like that, with agent handling and pursuing an investigation. But then there's also like how John's sort of struggling at home, where his wife's like, enough now. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, this is just enough now. So that's very much the world of it. Like, I think there's quite a bit of humor in it.
Okay.
Um, there's definitely like, there are kind of espionage thriller and crime thriller elements to it
Hmm.
as well. Um, Part of the story of Betrayal concerns uh, an Iranian source that John has got, that he meets. who's connected with the Manchester drugs trade.
Hmm.
And it's sort of through kind of investigating those links that John's job comes under threat, but also he begins to uncover a much bigger deal that he has a hard job getting his superiors to buy into, basically.
Is that the character played by friend of the show, Omid Jalili, by any chance?
Omid Jalili is a does play a kind of a senior kind of Iranian official.
Mm.
Yeah, he plays a character that's called a Major General Omid Kasadi. So yeah, I can't really get into the
That's
specifics around
fine.
what
That's
he's.
about all as much as I got out of it from Omid as well, to be fair. So, although he was nothing but complimentary of your writing, so
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I know it's really cool. I mean, it's been really fun thing to do, and like really stuff that I sort of joked earlier about what the 10 or 11 or 13-year-old me would be making of all this. Like, there was some kind of days on location over the summer when we were shooting some action sequences or following sequences where I was there sort of behind a monitor with my high vis on thinking, how on earth did all this happen? This is really fun, you know.
well, you've gone from like no spy to just like living in the spy world all of a sudden. You're just a big part of
Yeah,
our lives for all of our listeners now. So you're taking over our
yeah.
screens and our stages. It's just a big screen now. I think it's all that's left for you.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to write a movie in the genre. Of course I would. Like it's been such fun working on the Le Carré for the stage and Betrayal for ITV. Yeah, no, it's been really fun, and I suppose I was also quite interested in like as well. There was a tiny piece of information that was in the public domain that we came across about 5 years ago or something. This is on the TV show
Hmm.
about there being in MI5 there being a department of ethical counselling, and that there was an office of the ethical counsellor. And I thought this was interesting and quite funny that that in MI5 that there could be a person or a department that you could go to that would talk to you about the ethics of what you're doing,
Hmm.
And that made me think about like how quite a lot of our big public institutions now are quite values driven, aren't they? Like the
Hmm.
BBC or the NHS, people are worried not just about the function of those organizations, but that they have values that are kind of good in some way. Do you know
Or
what I mean?
aligned with their values as a
Yeah,
public. Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
are like, and that immediately sort of got, partly because of what I do for a living, that just set my imagination running that there's this kind of MI5 guy whose GP wife is at her wit's end. He's not got time to go to the doctor to get the doctor to look at his bum. He can't quite, get the backing from his bosses to pursue this
Hmm.
kind of Iranian lead. And, all the while around him, people in Thames House are thinking about mindfulness and recycling madly and, worrying about some of these other things that we all worry about now in a way that we didn't in the past. And that all felt like a really fun and heady mixture. And it also
Hmm.
felt quite fresh.
Hmm.
It felt like it wasn't a space that was being occupied by slow horses or black doves or anything else. Do you know what I mean? That was out there. It felt like we were slightly in a bit our own little bit of territory there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really fun. I can't wait for it to go out next year. We don't have a transmission date yet, but we believe it will be in the early in 2026, so the first 2 or 3 months of the year, hopefully. So not too much longer to wait, basically. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask about sort of where it maybe fits into in the grand scheme of things, but I think you answered that, especially thematically as well, like slightly comedic, but action and also a little bit closer to the reality of it all as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, and I've got two questions for you to wrap us
Yeah,
up.
go for it.
What are you working on now?
What am I working on now? You know what? I am writing a movie, which is not a spy movie, but is a I'm just doing quite an early draft, so like a third draft of a movie that's based upon a true story.
Hmm.
So if you have a Google, or any of your listeners have a Google, like you'll be able to find out about this, because it is a true story that's been on the news, which is a story of these three middle-aged dads that walk across England to try
Right.
and raise money and awareness in the memory of each of their daughters who sort of sadly died by suicide. So they want to
Right.
raise awareness, because and money, but also they just are these three men that are really grieving, and they want to feel better, So
Hmm.
yeah, three men in their 50s with beer bellies walking 300 miles across England, and kind of what they get up to basically, is what I'm working on now. But like I'm reaching the end of a massive kind of cycle of work that's been going for the last few years. This year, with The Spy Coming from the Cold, I'm just about to open a play at the National Theatre called End, which
It's
is
the
the
end of your trilogy, isn't it? Right.
yeah, it's the final one in a trilogy of plays for them. And the TV show, which is obviously we've been working on since just before the pandemic, that comes out in the new year. So I
Is
also,
that as in the beginning part of it? Is that the TV
sorry,
show? Is that the
sorry,
first part of the trilogy? Is the TV show?
no,
Is
no,
that?
no, no, it's not at all. No, no, no.
Oh, okay.
No, the trilogy is this. I've written these plays for the National Theatre called Beginning, Middle, and End.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all about relationships, and End is gonna be on. That starts next week in
Oh,
the National
Betrayal
Theatre.
was the TV show.
The Trail was the TV.
Oh, I'm with you now. I'm
Sorry,
up to speed.
sorry,
No,
I
no, it's up to
wasn't.
speed.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of am as well, just quite keen to sort of see sort of what new ideas come in the new year, because I feel like I've been on this stuff for a few years now, So uh, as much as it's been rewarding and fun doing these different things, including these two spy shows, I'm sort of quite keen to just sort of see what happens next as well.
Hmm.
Like also, I suppose it's quite nice to, like, I've been really, really busy in the last couple of years in particular, and people ring up and say, "Oh, would you be interested in this idea or that idea?" And you think, "Oh, that sounds great," but I can't really. I'm just
Hmm.
not free. I don't have the time, and it would be nice to be in a place next year where people like ring me up or ring my agent up with an idea, and actually you think, actually, I can do that. And then you start off a new journey. So yeah, but I mean, it's not, as I say, like I'm doing nothing. The movie is its own thing, and you know, uh, we'll sort of try and get that to the place, I think, before Christmas, where we can maybe send it out to a few people and see if we can get some actors interested, and then hopefully it will all take on a life of its own after that.
Well, if you ever do manage to write another spy product or project, I should say, make sure to write in a really inept British spy in the background called Scott who gets blown up by a pen or something, just to really fit my character. I think is perfect.
That's your favorite genre trope, is it? The
It's just the idiot in the background. Like
Yeah,
anything in the Q lab, I'm the guy that gets hit in or like trapped in the telephone box. That's me.
yeah,
I'm that
yeah.
guy. It gets folded into a sofa. That's me. Yeah, shot by a rocket launcher on someone's fake casted leg. Anyway, I keep naming Q branch moments, but I won't. So, final question for you, David. And this has been asked to everyone's ever been on the show. So
Yeah,
there's
go
no
for it.
pressure, but everyone is waiting for this question.
Go on.
Spy movies are our trade here on
Yeah,
SpyHards. It's what we mostly talk about.
yeah,
And we're fascinated by what people think is the best. So
yeah.
I want to hear from you. What is your favorite spy movie of all time?
Oh, my favorite spy movie of all time. Wow, that is a hard question. Um, I think there are loads of good ones, but I think the one that's made the biggest impression on me is the 2011 Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Like, I absolutely loved it. I saw it at the cinema twice.
Mm.
and I've probably watched it like half a dozen times since, just on TV. I don't know. It's partly like I love Alec Guinness's Smiley,
Hmm.
and like I love our John Ram's Smiley in the play. It's interesting. Like I think it's partly to do with Smiley's, like the sexual betrayal of Smiley, and
Yeah.
Oldman's portrayal of that hurt
It's like the
is.
Call of the Dead stuff, the sort of the wife sleeps around and that sort of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Where he comes in and Colin Firth is coming down the stairs, and like
Yeah.
there's no dialogue, but you just see the anguish and pain on Gary Oldman's face.
Hmm.
So we know, and I know that's the kind of personal betrayal story in that, but actually it has kind of made the greatest impression upon me, that movie, I think, and it is the one that I've returned to the most. Um, yeah, I mean, I think The Third Man's really good as
Hmm.
well, to go to a completely different era and stuff. But I just love that. I just love that Tinker Tailor. I've always loved it.
I always thought it was a shame he never got another chance to do Smiley, Sir Gary.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean he's rocking it in Slow Horses though. Like he's great in that.
yeah. I mean, that's another one where it's a bit the same as the film. I did see quite a bit of the first series, but because my own TV show was getting quite a bit of traction around then,
Mm,
I just sort of thought I'd need to kind of stay away from Slow Horses
sure.
because I just need to make sure I'm in my own pure, like, imaginative space and don't either become neurotic about someone else's show or um sort of unwittingly do something similar either. I just need to stop. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, from what I remember of that early first series, he was terrific in it. I mean, he's such a blinding actor. I mean, he's someone that's hard. It's hard to think of him ever having been bad in anything. You know what I mean?
No,
Maybe
I
you
can't think
have.
of it. But
No.
well, so you were going with the Third Man and the 2011 version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
I am.
I think people
Yeah.
will be very happy to hear that.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, they're great movies, both of them, I think. But yeah, they're really, really good. Um, John le Carré's got a great cameo in that Tinker Tailor as well, hasn't he?
At the Christmas party, yeah,
At the Christmas party. Yeah,
which was added in, wasn't it? It's not even in the book.
yeah,
That's nice
yeah.
little invention there by the film. But yeah, I said I'd get you out in an hour, and I've stuck to my guns. So,
Okay, thank
David, it's
you.
been a genuine pleasure. I wish you all the best with the play and Betrayal. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing more about that. I'm hoping to make it down to the play myself because I'm in London, so I will be stopping by probably in a Mac and a jacket and some glasses stood at the back of the room.
Rolled up newspaper,
Of
surely.
course, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Well,
Um, go on, sir.
let me know, and then maybe we could manufacture a brush past on the way to the bar
Ah,
and having a beer.
I think we can probably put that together.
So,
It's been a pleasure speaking to you, sir.
likewise, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers. Bye now.